Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, we are back. And Raul Castro, you are in big trouble. They just got indicted by the federal government. It's about time. I like it. You know, we do that sometimes. We indict, well, we do it to the bad guys. Unfortunately, we also do it to the good guys. Mamdani pretends indicts Bibi Netanyahu, a hero, by the way. All right, I want to go to Florida right now. There's Todd Blanche, the Attorney General. Let's go ahead and pump up the volume, please.
You just point to somebody.
Good afternoon. Many Cuban Americans are elated, emotional, hopeful on a day like today. What do you tell the Cuban community who is happy about today's announcement, but is wondering how you pursue these charges? What comes next?
I mean, that's the same question I just answered. I think that there's a process that happens, right? And so what's the first process is it's a charge, it's an indictment, and that happens all across this country constantly. And then the next question is, okay, so when is this guy going to show up and you know, appear in court and have a trial or what have you? And I would say to those that wonder whether this is just an indictment or we're going to go away, we're not. So go ahead. Yes, the blue shirt. Yeah. I'll go to the middle next.
Attorney General Blanche, we would like to know what would be the next step to. A lot of people are wondering if there will be a sort of attack, military response from the United States, if this now indictment gives permission for the United States to be closer to Cuba and, again, get Raul Castro and those others implicated here to the United States.
So I'm the acting Attorney General of the Department of Justice. We bring charges. So the question you asked is a question that involves the Department, the President of the United States, the Secretary of War, the Secretary of State, and doesn't involve the acting Attorney General. So what I can tell you is that this is this indictment, as we've said a bunch of times today, is a result of a lot of hard work and what we believe is an important step in bringing some semblance of justice to the families and friends and loved ones of these men who were murdered. But beyond that, I'm not going to talk about what could happen with Cuba beyond that. Yes, go ahead.
Attorney General Gloria Ordaz from Telemundo 51.
You think?
Thank you for this opportunity. The next step is going to be an arrest warrant, and I ask you this because the Cuban exile would love to see Raul Castro in the same position of Nicolás Maduro. And
hey, he's innocent till proven guilty.
a lot of legal experts that we have interviewed during these days have said that Raul Castro, that this indictment will be more symbolic than practice, and that Raul Castro should probably die in Cuba. What is your message for them?
Well, I'm not going to compare cases, for one. For two, like I said a few minutes ago, we indict men who are not physically within the United States all the time. This is not a new endeavor or adventure for us. And so the way that we get people here who are charged with a crime varies. There's all kinds of different ways. And this is not, there's an arrest warrant issued for a reason, because we certainly expect and believe that Mr. Castro is entitled to his day in court right here in Miami. Sue, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Jesse Kirsch with NBC News. You mentioned that the grand jury approved these charges weeks ago. Curious to know what, if any, role the CIA director's visit to Cuba in recent days played in deciding to move forward with announcing this indictment. And
I'm not going to get into why we decided to unseal the indictment today, except to note the place that we're standing and the important day that today represents. But yes, you're right. There's a lot of factors that go into when a sealed indictment is unsealed, if ever. And so beyond just the fact that, look, by the way, it wasn't that long ago. It was late April. It's mid-May. So.
Thank you. One other question. If people look at this and say this is at least partially just a pretext to push for regime change in Cuba, what would you say to people who take that perspective?
I don't care what people look at and think. I mean, we returned an indictment, and that's what we're here to talk about. If people want to speculate or think what they will, I don't care. Okay, one more question. Blue.
Hi, so the final speaker, thank you. Hi, I'm Deborah Acosta with the Wall Street Journal. The final speaker mentioned or hinted at a potential team of people that has been put together to lead the country. Who are those people? Are they in the United States? Are they in Cuba? Is it a mix of both? Can you share a little bit more about that team?
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Can you say
another way. Raul Castro is 94 years old, by the way. All right, they accuse Mr. Castro and others, including Cuban pilots, of killing 4 people who died when the Cuban military shot down 2 planes in 1996 by Brothers to the Rescue. I remember this, a Cuban rescue exile group that used aircraft to look for Cubans fleeing the country by sea. Fidel Castro took responsibility for downing the planes shortly after they were shot down, claiming that the organization had dropped anti-regime leaflets over Havana in earlier flights. I remember this, and the pilots were bragging to themselves about cojones, right? You have to have big balls to shoot down planes. They did that. They absolutely did that. And I'm not, pilots will be pilots, whether you're, All right. So that's what the indictment is for. Let's see. In the 30 years since the planes were down, Cuban-American lawmakers, exile activists, survivors of the episode, and family members have called for Raul Castro, who was Minister of Defense at the time, to be criminally charged. You're going down! But he's 94. He's in Cuba. He ain't coming here, and I think that's that. It's symbolic, and it's important. Hey, when the richest man in the world talks, although come to think of it, I think he might be the second richest man, Bezos, Jeff Bezos. Is he richest? He's right up there. Founder of Amazon. It's very interesting. He told a story once I heard about, the first thing that Amazon did was sell those books, right? They were just selling books and shipping books. Now it's everything, but they were shipping books. And they were doing it on the floor. They had a big board on the floor, and they'd sort the books, and they were just working on the floor. And what's his name said? Bezos said to everybody, hey, you know what we really need to do this well? Knee pads, because we're on our knees a lot. And one guy said, or we could just get a table. Now, no correlation whatsoever. It's Colin Kaepernick. I want to do this, and then we'll do that. Colin Kaepernick, you know the guy, hates America, always taking a knee, jerk, very divisive, try to screw up football. Got so involved in the social activism that he forgot that, you know what? It's more important to practice your craft, your sport. Be a good quarterback. No, he was just too busy being a victim. Anyway, a comedian told a very good joke the other day at a comedy club and got heckled for it. And it's a pretty sweet moment in my book. Go ahead.
I got my wife a Colin Kaepernick jersey, so she spends more time on her knees.
It's a little vulgar, but it's okay.
People are just yelling out, nice, thank you. What was that? Yikes. Okay. What are you, a Batman cartoon? Pow! Bam! Thank you. Are you single?
Not for you.
No, not for anybody. Okay, where's your husband? At home celebrating? Okay, so...
Damn, that's cold. Damn!
I guarantee he's somewhere yelling, bam! Okay.
That's good. That's comedy. All right, so back to the richest man in the world, or the second richest, Jeff Bezos. When this guy talks, it's like E.F. Hutton. Remember the old joke? When E.F. Hutton talks, people watch, right? No, people listen up. Something along those lines. Ready? Are we ready? My Jeff Bezos? I want the bigger one. I want the great big fat. I want the whole gosh damn kit and caboodle. Okay? He's being interviewed by that guy who I used to not like, but now I like him. I met him and now I like him. Andrew Ross Sorkin. And let's go ahead and hit it. Ready? Go.
We are here with Jeff Bezos, the founder of Blue Origin, also, of course, founder of Amazon. It is great to see you. This is remarkable, by the way, just the scale of it. We've been talking about it all morning. But of all the people that we could talk to about everything that's going on in the country right now, in the economy, AI, jobs, space, we want to talk to you. And there is so much to talk about. We're going to touch on that, policy, politics, and so much more. But one of the topics that I thought we should talk about, and maybe even start with, is these days it feels almost impossible to pick up a newspaper without reading a headline about wealth in America, about the billionaire class, about wealth inequality and policy and everything else.
What newspaper is he reading?
A uniquely critical turn, I think. And I'm so curious, before we even get into everything else, what you think about that right now.
Well, first of all, Andrew, I'm glad you're asking the question. I think it's a really important topic, and I think it's an important one to discuss, because I see the same thing you do. You know, you see it in a bunch of headlines, you see it in a bunch of places. And I have been thinking about, like, what is driving this? Because it does seem different from 10 years ago, and I think what's going on is that it's kind of a tale of two economies. So you have a bunch of people in this country who are doing really well, but you also have a bunch of people in this country who are struggling to pay rent, groceries, and so what's happening here is politicians are using the kind of age-old technique. So there's this tale of two economies, and they're using this age-old technique of, picking a villain and pointing fingers. But the problem is that doesn't solve anything. And so, like, if you want to help the group of people who are struggling, you have to figure out real root causes and solutions, and that takes skill. It's like if we have a problem at Amazon, the way we would fix it is we would go in and we'd do the 5 whys and we'd try to get to a root cause. We'd try to find a root fix. And then when we fix it at the root, you're fixing it forever. It's a real solution. And what we don't do, because it doesn't work, is just point fingers and blame people. It might feel good for 10 seconds, but doesn't accomplish anything. And so what could you really do? So, like, I started. Do you have a plan? I have some ideas. I have some places to start. So, I started thinking about this and doing some research. A nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year pays more than $12,000 a year in taxes. Does that really make sense? So people talk about, making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having the nurse in Queens not pay taxes? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes? That's $1,000 a month that could help with rent or groceries or anything.
Stop for a second. I don't know. You got to pay your taxes. If that's all she's paying in taxes, $12,000, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I don't like paying taxes. You got to pay taxes. We got to have some tax. Why is he picking the... By the way, a lot of nurses make a lot more than $75,000 a year. And go back to, these guys, they get so consumed with their own success, right? I was good at this, therefore I must be good in everything. That's how some of them think. All right. We'll be right back. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm seeing more drugs on the street of New York City. A friend of mine just sent me something. A couple of guys shooting up on a bench in the subway. That is dangerous. Those needles they leave on the ground. Everybody is smoking weed, and I mean everybody. If you don't smoke that stuff, I'm telling you, man, going forward, that's going to be half the battle. Everybody is going to be high on dope. And if you're not, I think it's going to be a tremendous advantage going forward. Huge advantage. Oh, wait a second. Stop everything. Is this Beth in Kentucky, the one who loves to work out aerobically? Beth, is that you with the beautiful voice?
Yes, I'm in the gym now.
I knew it. You're a gym rat in the best way. I love it.
I love it. I love it. It's just so good for your body, and I always hated it. I love it. I broke my collarbone back in September, so I just got, blue and weak and not myself and a lot family things going on and all that jazz.
Is that husband giving you a hard time?
Oh, no. He almost has 4.5 million miles.
Oh.
No, he's not.
In the truck, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't figure out when to retire yet.
I don't know why I keep bringing up your husband when I talk to you. Let's not talk about him right now. You're such an amazing person. I'm sorry. I love your voice. What can I say? I'm trying to be a clumsy flirt here. It's not working. Listen, Beth, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind? You were talking about the Moulton fella, and I don't even remember. You were having a hard time trying to figure out his name.
Yeah.
And immediately what came to my mind was, well, I think he might need Mo, Larry, and Curly with him.
Yeah.
So I just started rolling on the floor. I'm sitting here doing some embroidery work, and that's just what popped in my head. And I just had to laugh and tell you.
Well, we love it.
Funny.
We love it. We love it. We love it. Moulton is a goofy guy. So you're on the treadmill or on the bike or what?
Well, I'm starting to walk again. I fell because I have a husky. Bammo, I hit the concrete, bounced my head, and then rolled down the hill.
Oh, my.
So, yeah. So right now I'm doing some embroidery work. I went through PT, and we do go back to the campus where it all happened at, but we play in a field. And then I walk on flat land to get 35 minutes in and throw a ball.
Listen to you.
Busy.
Great shape. How tall are you?
5'2".
Wow. And you're very thin, right?
I wish. Just 120.
Whoa. Don't change a thing. Beth, you're amazing. I'm sorry about your collarbone. I broke my collarbone back in the day. Did it come back a weird shape like mine?
Well, of course, one part pokes out.
Yep. Same here. Well, listen, best to the husband and best to you. I'm so happy whenever you call. Beth from Kentucky. Oh, and thank you for getting rid of that Massey guy.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Still in the DOJ and FBI.
I hope not. Well, we're going to seek them out. We'll seek them out. We'll get rid of them. Okay? Because you have in every agency, you have scum. And certainly they did in the FBI and DOJ. But Todd Blanche is doing a fantastic job. Cash is doing a very good job. So we will prevail. I've been standing here a long time with you, many years, right? And they've been saying, I think it's it. I think he's trouble. Here I am, It's a very constant situation. But I think you're going to find that we have great people in the FBI and we have great people in DOJ. Todd Blanche has really been doing a great job.
All right, but they're on the lookout for the creeps who don't belong there, who have been trying to undermine the administration and get people out who harmed, prosecuted, persecuted those accused of January 6 offenses. They went totally overboard, and a lot of devastation in the wake of that excess. Matthew Perna, Perna, a young man who was there on January 6th, but he didn't do anything that bad, all right? Didn't hurt anybody, didn't break anything, but boy, oh boy, they threw the book at him. And at one point, they upgraded the charges to like damn near terrorism. and they literally drove him to death. I understand this. I didn't always understand it. Now I understand. He committed suicide, and given what I know now about that case, I could definitely see how that could happen, and I'm very sad that it happened. We're joined now by Jerry Perna, Matthew's aunt, and Jerry, thanks for being with us. You've been making a lot of noise about this on Twitter, and you've been doing a great job reminding people and telling people about all of this. How are you?
I'm doing fine now. Thank you, Greg. You have been a very loud voice for the January Sixers, and you haven't forgotten them, and that is greatly appreciated.
Well, it's an honor, but I must say I overlook certain matters, and I hear suicide, and sometimes I think, well, that must have been something else, and the word was used by the January 6th cops to kind of portray it as deadlier than it was. Just do me a favor. Tell us a little bit about your nephew and what happened to him.
Matthew was 37 years old, and he graduated at the top of his class from Penn State University. He traveled the world, and he was very intelligent. He read several books a week, and he was never all that into politics, and he was actually a Bernie Sanders fan at one time, and then President Trump came on the scene, and Matt was enamored by him, and he put all of his efforts behind getting him elected. He used his social media accounts, and he decided to go to January 6th because he felt that the election was stolen, and a bunch of us went with him. There was a brother of mine that went and some friends, and we went with him, and we listened to President Trump's speech, and we made our way to the Capitol, and Matt got separated from us. He went inside. He was in less than 20 minutes. We stayed outside. I was on the lawn at the Capitol watching it all play out. Went back to our hotel room. Matt made a video from his hotel room, and we went home. And then about a week or so later, I was sitting on my couch reading Facebook, and I saw where somebody put a link that they were looking for people who attended January 6th. And I opened that link, and there was my nephew's picture as a wanted person. And my heart sank. And Matt ended up turning himself in the very next morning because he didn't feel he had done anything wrong, and he thought it was a big misunderstanding. And the FBI didn't arrest him right away. They came back about a week later, and they arrested him. And although he didn't go to jail, he had never had any altercations with the law before. They charged him with 4 misdemeanors, the basic ones.
Can I ask you real quick, when they came back to arrest him, how was that affected? They give him a heads up? Did they call him? He wasn't able to turn himself in? What happened?
They pulled a fast one on him, actually. I had flown up I live in Florida. I flew up from Florida to Pennsylvania, and I was with Matt's dad. And we had just left the house, and Matt was at the house, at his dad's house. And we had just left the house to go somewhere, and Matt called me on the phone, and he said, the FBI called. They just want to come back and ask me a few more questions. I said, that's not why they're coming, Matt. I said, let's turn the car around. We turned the car around, and sure enough, we had only been maybe a half a mile up the road. There were 4 FBI cars in the yard. They must have called him from the yard, and he didn't know they were out there. And they went in, and they were placing him under arrest. And Matt's dad, my brother, was standing there, and he almost passed out. He was very upset. And they took Matt. They said, we're going to hold him for about 3 hours and get him booked, and you'll be able to pick him up later this afternoon. And that's exactly what happened. And they charged him with the 4 misdemeanors. And then a few weeks later, they came back and they charged, I forget if it was 200 J6ers with the felony of obstruction of an official proceeding. And Matthew happened to be one of those people. And that's when it got difficult, because they were talking 20-year sentences at that point. And, he had secured a lawyer, and the lawyer had 40 years of experience in criminal justice, and he kept telling Matt, don't worry, I've got this, this is no big deal. Matt had never even been arrested, never even had a parking ticket. He's 37 years old, so he was sure they weren't going to throw the book at him, but that's exactly what they did. And so as the months were going on, Matt was deteriorating physically, mentally. He stopped everything he did before. He stayed in his house. He'd stopped running. He stopped meeting with friends, and we were very, very worried about him. And he asked his attorney after, I think it was, December, what's the best thing I could do at this point? How can I just make this end and go away? I just want to get this out past my life past this. And the attorney said, well, you're not going to get a fair trial in D.C. I would plead guilty if I were you. Just plead guilty. You're looking at 6, no more than 12 months in a minimum security federal prison camp. So Matt he resigned himself to that being the punishment. He got in touch with a friend who agreed to watch his home, take care of his cat while he would be away. And he thought, I can help the fellow inmates get their degrees, because Matt was get their college or high school diplomas, because he was very, very intelligent. That was something he wanted to do, to give back a little. And he thought he would pursue a second degree himself while he was in there. So he was prepared for this. And then he called me on a Monday afternoon, and he was just sobbing uncontrollably. The attorney had called him and told him that his sentencing hearing, which was supposed to be the following week, had been postponed, as everything in his case was always postponed. They dragged it and dragged it and dragged it out over 13 months. But they were postponing it because the prosecutor was planning to ask for a terrorism enhancement at his sentencing hearing, which would have increased his sentence greatly. And Matt was just crying on the phone, and I kept trying to calm him down. I said, don't worry, you have faith in God. God is not going to allow you to go to prison. Just, let's just have faith here. And he just couldn't hear any of what I was saying. And the last thing he said to me on the phone that day was, Aunt Jerry, I'm sorry I lost all your friends for you. I'm so sorry about that. And I said, you didn't lose anybody that was important to me. And we ended our phone conversation. That was on a Monday afternoon. His dad had been calling me all week, telling me he was worried about Matt. And I was considering flying back up to Pennsylvania, and I didn't. And then that Friday night, February 25th, 2022, my brother called me and said, you're going to have to fly home because Matt just hanged himself in his garage.
So sorry. My gosh. I just, absolutely terrible. And there are people who are involved in this prosecution of your nephew who are still working for the federal government.
Yes.
And that is outrageous. And this is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking, people, accountability. This can't stand. And these people, the people for what they did should be arrested. And I bet we could prove it. I think there are components of this, like, for instance, postponing. Why do you think they were postponing it so much? Why do you think, and keeping these guys in agony, in limbo? Why were they postponing it so much?
Well, I think it was a mental torture, number one, and I think that they were just digging. In Matt's case, what did they say? Discovery, something about discovery. I can't even remember the term that they used. I think, honestly, they knew they didn't have enough on him, and they were just digging and digging for more, and they couldn't find anything because there was nothing to find. So I think it was a combination of the two.
It crossed my mind, maybe they wanted to keep this thing going longer because they wanted to milk it politically for the 2022 midterms and for the 2024 election.
Oh, definitely. And I think there was a moment when it was Matthew Graves wanted to see, was it 2,000 J6ers arrested before the end of that year? They had numbers in mind.
Matthew Graves being the former U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C.
Yes.
A really, really bad guy in all of this. This is definition weaponized justice, and it's not justice. What are you doing now? There's some news. There's a lot of things going on right now. January 6th is getting more attention because I believe Judicial Watch, there are more, just gotten renewed attention because of the money that's been put aside for a fund. And also we are seeing more body camera footage, or at least some of them are seeing the body camera footage for the first time, I guess. But why are we, what do you want to do right now?
Well, I would like to see some arrests is what I would like to see. You know, the body cam footage that you're speaking of was Michael Fanone, who lied through his teeth about multiple injuries that he never actually received. And he himself is a large component in all of this because he stirred up the public. He is one of the reasons the January 6ers were called insurrectionists and why they were hated as badly as they were. And now it's come out that he lied. Well, there has to be some consequences for him lying because his contribution to all this destroyed thousands of lives. And he needs to be held accountable. And I want to see accountability. I want to see the January 6th Select Committee held accountable for all of the misinformation and the information they withheld from the public. There should be accountability. There should be arrests taking place. The money that President Trump is so graciously giving to people that suffered the weaponization of our government is wonderful for the J6ers, but there's a lot of people that are going to be sharing in that pot. And I would hope to think that this is just the beginning of maybe a larger sum of money to put these people's lives back together, if it can even be done. They lost everything. Some of them lost their homes and their businesses. Their wives left them. They lost their retirements. They can't get a job now. So, in my opinion, I'm not entitled to any money. I am an aunt of a person from January 6th. My thing is arrests. I need to see people arrested and perp walked just like the January 6ers were. I need to see their bank accounts drained and their lives ruined.
Well, that's certainly what people like Fanone and Dunn and Gunnell and Cheney, Schiff, Kinzinger, that's what they deserve.
Yes.
That's what they absolutely deserve. And the swamp is very powerful. It does not want to be drained, and they have outlasted presidents. Presidents come and go, but they think there's always going to be a swamp. So you have a website. Tell us a little bit about that. Is there anything we can do specifically to help you?
Yes, I did start a foundation in Matt's name. It is the Matthew L. Perna Foundation.com. I started the foundation shortly after he passed away, and we've raised quite a bit of money, our little foundation. It's a small foundation, completely volunteer. No salaries are taken because Matt would have been livid if anybody, the way some foundations are not really for the cause, they're more for themselves. But we are presently waiting on a puppy to be trained because we are donating a fully trained service dog to a veteran in need. So we raised $37,000 to pay for everything, and we'd like to take our next project on. But like I said, we are a small foundation, so all donations help to carry on Matt's generosity and the causes he believed in. So that's Matthew L. Perna Foundation.com.
Matthew L. Perna Foundation.com.
Yes.
Well, Jerry, and what do you do? What do you do when you're not involved in these very worthy pursuits?
When I'm not doing that, I like to buy and sell antiques.
Oh, that sounds kind of nice.
Yes, so I'm self-employed. I worked for companies, but I've always pretty much been self-employed, and I like it that way.
Yeah, I know. A boss. Having a boss. You're your own boss. That's pretty sweet. Although I got the best bosses in the world. No joke. I really do. Well, listen, let's stay in touch. Jerry Perna, everybody. And we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me on, Greg.
You bet. You bet. Take care now. Oh, wow. That's a lot there, right? Man, these guys, what they did, and the lying and the yelling and the shouting and the screaming during those stupid January 6 hearings in prime time and in the election year. How dare they? How dare they? Well, justice is still on its way. A lot of it. We've seen a lot of it, but there's a lot more to go. And thank you again to President Trump. We'll be right back.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So wait a second. This Graham Plattner guy in Maine is making fun of veterans and combat service. How about that one? Graham Plattner. What a lowlife. You know, anybody can ask for forgiveness and be forgiven, you know, but I don't know. You don't belong in the United States Senate, that's for sure. He's unhinged. No respect for anyone, including himself. He has no place in the U.S. Senate. That's from the Maine Republicans. Totally concur, everybody. All right, I got to go in a second. 800-848-9222. Dan, hello. How are you?
Hey, Greg. So you mentioned Leonard Peltier earlier. And there's a fascinating documentary about that case. And I think it's worth watching and, you know, then decide if you think he's guilty or not.
A documentary?
Yeah, it's called Incident at Oglala. It's really good.
Well, I'm a little bit skeptical of documentaries. All right. I mean, documentary is, you know, they have this veneer of prestige, right? But it's almost the definition of fake news because they come up with a point of view, right? And then they kind of pick and choose evidence to back up their point of view. And I've heard from enough credible guys that this Leonard Peltier, you know, hey, look, you know, like our January 6 guys, they have support from me, but they don't get support from anybody else. And Leonard Peltier, who was accused and convicted of having something big to do with the death of 2 FBI agents, gets all kinds of help. You know what I mean? Across the board. And the January 6ers are like ignored. You know what I mean? That's, you know, hey, maybe the guy didn't do it. I don't know. Maybe I'll check out that documentary. But you got to admit, he had a hell of a lot of celebrity support, and nobody stuck their neck out for the January 6ers. That's my beef. Does that make sense?
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, I'm not comparing them to the January 6ers. Of course, they got a raw deal. But it's just an interesting documentary.
What's it called again?
Incident at Oglala.
It sounds like, okay, I will. Incident at Oglala. I actually don't know that much about that whole thing, so I should look into it. Thank you, Dan. I will. I'm going to follow up and do that. Robert is standing by in Florida.
Hey, Greg. First of all, before I say anything, I just want to tell you I've been following you for 20 years. You're the greatest guy on television as far as a correspondent. I can't begin to say a lot of good things about you. You're the greatest. Here's what my question to you is. Why is it that Donald Trump, and I'm a Trumper, why isn't he bringing in the oil companies into the Oval Office and saying to them, why don't you lower the price of gas per gallon like they do in Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait? Because if you look it up, you'll see these people over there are paying like less than $1 a gallon.
Isn't it like a global price? It's a global price. It's not like, you know, they don't arbitrarily set these prices, the oil companies, right?
I didn't say they do, but how come we have so much oil and gas, more than anybody has in the world?
Well, I don't know if it's more than anybody in the world, but look, it's let's relax about the gas prices. $4.50, too much. Once the Iran thing is over, it goes way down. And also, it's not the record high. That happened under Joe Biden, over $5 a gallon of gas. So we got to relax. But thank you for the kind words and praise. So kind.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Very Hawks baseball.
Tuesday, May 19th at 10:30 a.m., it's morning baseball. Wednesday, May 20th at 6:30 p.m., have a pawsome time at Bark in the Park. Thursday, May 21st at 6:30, it's Pride Night with $5 Bud or Bud Light draft beer. Individual game tickets start at just $12.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.